Hello, I'm Paisley, and recently I found myself faced with the most agonizing decision I've ever had to make. Even now, just the thought of it brings tears to my eyes. Until last year, my life was carefree and enjoyable. Then suddenly, both of my twin sisters fell ill simultaneously, and I became their only hope. It was an incredibly daunting situation, but there's more to the story. You see, I could only save one of them, and that's where my journey begins. Our family had always embodied the image of a perfect family. My parents remained deeply in love, and my sisters, Maya and Grace, were my closest companions. Maya and Grace are identical twins, just 3 years younger than me, and despite their special bond, they always made me feel like part of their duo, which was wonderful. We had made a pact to spend as much time together as possible before I headed off to college on the other side of the country. My dad had planned an epic road trip for us, and a week before our departure, Maya started experiencing severe illness. She would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, with an alarmingly high fever. Shortly after, Grace began complaining of stomach pains and soon developed a fever as well. It was a Sunday when we rushed to the hospital in search of an emergency appointment. The moment the nurse at the front desk saw Maya, she immediately escorted her to a private room, and I could see her skin turning a shade of yellow. It was then that we realized something terribly wrong was happening. It was clear that this wasn't a simple flu. After a series of blood tests and an agonizing wait for the results, the head doctor delivered the heartbreaking news. Maya and Grace were suffering from a rare form of liver disease, one that had likely been silently developing since their birth. My mom couldn't hold back her tears and began blaming herself. She had no idea when she became pregnant with the twins. Working at a winery, she was constantly tasting and evaluating new wines. When she discovered her pregnancy, she was plagued by worries that her exposure to wine might have affected her health. Dad did his best to reassure her, emphasizing that it was not her fault at all. I could sense that Dad was deeply upset too, but he was trying to keep it together for the sake of Maya and Grace. Naturally, the twins were devastated, though I don't believe they fully grasped the gravity of the situation. After the doctors left to give us some private time, we managed to console Mom, and Dad even cracked a joke that had us all laughing. We were still sharing giggles when the head doctor returned, wearing a sullen expression that made my heart sink. His demeanor seemed to suggest he was about to deliver news of a tragedy. He took a seat and asked us all to sit down. Mom started getting teary again, so I held her hand tightly. The doctor began by saying there was more news, and he struggled to find the right words. My gaze shifted between Maya and Grace. I would have done anything to make them better. Little did I know that this would soon become a reality. It turned out that Maya and Grace's condition was much more critical than we had initially thought. Their only chance of survival hinged on finding 2 donors willing to donate a portion of their liver. I couldn't believe it. My younger sisters needed liver transplants. I immediately jumped up and declared, "I'll do it. I'll do it right now. Take my liver, please. Just save my sisters." Tears streamed down my face, and it felt as though our entire world was collapsing. Yet, through it all, Maya and Grace displayed incredible strength. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and even second cousins rallied around us. Everyone was heartbroken upon hearing the news, and they rushed to undergo blood tests to determine if they were compatible donors for the twins. After we had composed ourselves, Mom and I went for the tests. I couldn't bear to leave my sisters alone in that room, fearing they might not make it before we received the results. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. Needles terrified me. They were my biggest phobia. But in that moment, I didn't even feel it. My thoughts were miles away, as if I were on another planet. The results arrived swiftly, but unfortunately, neither Mom nor Dad was a suitable match for the transplant. The doctors explained that this was normal, given their age and other factors. I held my breath as a nurse delivered my test results to the doctor. "You're a match," he said. I had to ask him to repeat it because I couldn't believe my ears. The relief was so overwhelming that I actually ran up to him and hugged him tightly. I had the chance to save my sisters, and it felt like life could finally return to normal. The transplant surgery would only take a day, but the recovery process was expected to take at least a month. This meant canceling our vacation plans, but something else dawned on me. I couldn't go to college. I had already missed the first 2 weeks, and what if something went wrong during the surgery? No, I needed to be here for my sister's recovery. I tried my best to banish negative thoughts and focus on the positive. Later that day, I called the admissions office at my college and explained that I would have to postpone my enrollment until the following year. Thankfully, they were understanding and sent their best wishes for my sisters. Even though I knew it was the right decision, it still pained me that I wouldn't be starting college alongside my friends. I'm usually the most indecisive person in the world, so it surprised me how quickly I made this choice. The doctors scheduled the surgery for the following month. They couldn't afford to wait any longer, especially since Maya's condition was deteriorating. However, they wanted to ensure that everything was in place before proceeding. They closely monitored my health to ensure the transplant's success, as any slightest issue with my liver could jeopardize the procedure. Every day, I had to undergo blood tests to check my liver function. Despite being in the hospital, Maya and Grace remained stable. We made the best of our time together, watching movies and enjoying visits from their friends. Around a week before the scheduled surgery, I received a call from the doctor while I was at my friend Ellie's house. As soon as I heard the news, I rushed to the hospital where my parents were waiting for me. The next piece of information hit me like a punch to the chest. After extensive research, the doctors had concluded that if I wanted to ensure a long and healthy life, I could only donate a very small portion of my liver. This meant that I could only provide enough to save one of my sisters. It felt like the ground was giving way beneath me. So far, no one else had proven to be a match, leaving me as the sole hope for saving my sisters. And yet, I was being told that I could only save one of them. I didn't want to face it. I was only 17 years old. Why was I burdened with such a life-altering decision? I wasn't even an adult yet. Mom and Dad offered their support, reassuring me that everything would be okay and expressing confidence that they would find another donor. However, I had to make a decision quickly. I went to my sister's room, and as soon as I walked in, I could see the distress in their eyes. It was clear that tears had been shed. Fear coursed through me. I couldn't fathom making this choice. They weren't just my sisters, they were my closest friends. Maya, who was a bit sicker than Grace, urged me to choose Grace. Meanwhile, Grace insisted that I had to choose Maya because Maya needed the help more. I couldn't bear the weight of this decision. I fled from the hospital. They could figure it out, and I would do what I had to do. In either case, it felt like my life had crumbled. I should have been at college, enjoying time with my friends, but instead, I was confronted with the responsibility of deciding which of my sisters to save. The following week passed in a blur, and before I knew it, the day of the surgery had arrived. Maya and Grace had made the decision about which of them I would save, but they kept it a secret until after the surgery. As I woke up from anesthesia, the smiles on the surgeons' faces signaled success. The operation had gone well, but the burning question remained: who had I saved? Which sister had been given a second chance? And what about the other one? Although I had to stay in the hospital for at least a week to recover, I longed for some fresh air and decided to head towards the main entrance. The effects of anesthesia left me a bit dizzy, so at first, I didn't even notice my dad standing at the reception. There was a bit of commotion, and my dad was engaged in a conversation with a woman who bore a striking resemblance to him, but much, much younger. In fact, she appeared closer to my age than his. Who could she be? Little did I know that things were about to take an unexpected turn. My dad had a past he had never shared with us. He had fathered a child with his high school sweetheart, and this woman at the hospital was his daughter. I couldn't believe it. As my dad explained the whole story, I honestly felt like my world was unraveling. First of all, how had my dad managed to keep this a secret all these years? Second, why was she here at such a critical time? I wanted to harbor resentment, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she had come to our rescue. My dad had reached out to her when we needed additional donors for Maya and Grace, and now she was here because her blood tests had revealed that she was a perfect match as well. She could save the other twin. When I heard that, I wanted to embrace her. I didn't even have time to be angry at my father because all I could think about was how both my sisters could survive. And now we had a fourth sister. It was utterly unbelievable. In the end, it all fell into place. Sally, our newfound stepsister, saved Grace's life, and I saved Maya's life. I wish I could say that we all lived happily ever after, but of course my dad had a lot of explaining to do. However, in that moment, all that mattered was celebrating the successful transplants for Maya and Grace. We could sort out the rest later, and boy, did we have a lot to talk about.